Hi everyone, I'm Joanna. This is Hyphenated, the podcast about living in the hyphen. And today I have an incredible co-host while Jenny is off at her sister's wedding. Akilah Hughes is one of my favorite people in the world. She is outstandingly intelligent, incredibly funny, and one of my first internet crushes that became a real life friend. And I am just so excited to have Akilah here co-hosting today's episode with me. Hi, honey.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Oh my gosh, what an intro. I love you even more than what you said about me. I love you the same. I was
How dare
also
you?
like,
How
wow.
dare you insinuate that, Akilah?
I also had an internet crush. So this is,
It's kind of crazy because me and you sort of lived similar career paths, I guess. We were in the comedy scene in New York, but we sort of very much found our footing and what we wanted to say and our point of view through the stuff that we made on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there was, I guess when I talk about your career path, I do think that you had more of a legit comedy thing in New York. You were on real sketch teams at UCB and stuff, you were doing it. And I think that I was such a fan in that regard. But yeah, your internet presence and the stuff that you wanted to talk about and the things that you could bring so much clarity to and so much levity to, that was always online. And I think that that's the beautiful thing about the internet is we actually could say the real stuff, we don't have to try to, I think, fit in with whatever comedy is doing at the moment. We just create that culture, which is great.
Yeah, sometimes it's I feel like I'm a comedian, but I don't want to just be funny. It feels exhausting to just be funny. It's when I'm myself, I unintentionally am funny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The internet gave me that platform to just be myself and say dumb shit.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think that we're just entering a new era of comedy, and all of my favorite comedians growing up were people who I thought were very funny, but just had such profound truths in their comedy. I love Chris Rock, and I think that his best work is when he's saying something that is undeniably true, and everyone should have said it by now, but they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm I think that that's the fun space that we can occupy, where it's we can be smart and funny. I love being silly, but I do think that the times are a little heavier than just Dumb and Dumber. gotta progress.
It's so true. And I don't know about you. For me, comedy has always been the way that I go through hard times. Every time there's just a problem or a situation, or I'm going through something really difficult, I always try to undercut it with humor, because I feel humor tends to cut through fear.
Totally.
That's why nervous laughter and awkward jokes, when I was going through my whole cancer thing and surgeries and everything, I couldn't stop making jokes and trying to make light of a situation that felt like the opposite.
Yeah.
And when we were talking yesterday about what we wanted to talk about today, you mentioned to me that today marks a really important day or anniversary for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So 5 years ago, I had a major surgery. I had benign liver tumors, so not cancer, but kind of came out of nowhere. And I think that that's probably the common thread here. But it basically, I felt like I was on a career ascent. I felt like everything's coming up. I'm finally getting all these opportunities. And then it's just oh, you have this issue and, your condition can deteriorate really quickly. And so it was sort of I describe it as a wall being built between me and the world. Suddenly I was just over here experiencing this thing. And I'm oh, who can relate to this? And so, yeah, it's been 5 years since the surgery, which is important for several reasons. Obviously, happy I'm still kicking it, but also
still alive. That's good.
Exactly. I can't complain. 10 out of 10, still living, breathing every day. But also I remember reading statistics about surgeries, especially this one, because that's what you do. You got to fill the time with information. And the one statistic that I remembered was most people don't live 5 years after the surgery, because for several reasons. One of them is that mostly older people have this surgery. I had a liver resection, so it's they're taking a big chunk of your liver. Usually that happens when you're 70. they don't think you'll make it to 75, but they think you might make it to 73. And so to make it 5 years, I'm like, okay, so I actually am not ancient. Like, that's good. Younger than I thought.
Just your liver. Yeah. Only your liver is 70-something.
Exactly.
Akilah has the body of a 30-something.
That's right. Akilah, 30-something, like a MILF, but I have no kids. Like, wow, she really bounced back. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I wanted to talk with you about it because, you know, I'm sure it was even more isolating having to go through cancer in a pandemic when you don't have, you know, everyone there to love you and cheer you on, and everything is so distanced. But I think that, like, of all things, I guess of all people, I think that, like, your comedy and your levity about the situation, you know, made other people feel like they had permission to also, you know, be light and funny and try to, like, give you that love from a distance when they couldn't be there.
It's interesting because I've had friends go through really difficult things, and I've always encountered that I have trouble knowing what to say, right? And it's just like, oh my God, this person must be like a different person now. It's like a new reality that, do you know what I mean? And I felt it, people treating me differently, and it bothered me. They'd be like, hola, Joanna. And I'd say a joke and they're like, I'm with you. I'm like, no, just please joke about this.
Laugh.
Joke about how absurd it is. I don't have a cheek anymore. Like, it is inherently funny. I don't have a cheek. It is inherently funny that the doctor potentially was going to take skin from my ass and put it on my face. That is inherently funny. Like, can we take a moment? Yes, I'm going through this thing, but why is it that, you know, this new reality that I'm going through, why is it changing the way people perceive me and act around me? And that I realized I was doing it to others in the past.
Yeah, same. Totally same. And you know what it is? I think that, like, at least from this side of it, from the, like, being sick side of it, is that it happens and it's random. You know what I mean? Like, it isn't something where I'm like, oh, I felt sick for a really, 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 really long time. And, you know, like, this is how people know me. It's just a thing that happens. And I think that what's hard for people to understand is, like, it could happen to you. It could happen to you tomorrow. And so I think that they put people in this box of, like, well, now you're like a survivor. You're a person who, you're like the base of who you are as a person is having overcome this thing. And you're like, I mean, I can't speak for you, but for me, it was like, this is just kind of happening. Like, it's a random B storyline, guys. Like, I didn't know it was going to pop up, and we're not really going to try to, like, focus on it for the rest of my career or life. Like, I'm feeling good now. Let's move forward. And they're like, but, you know, are you good? Like, even yesterday when I posted about the surgery, like the anniversary, all of these comments are like, oh my God, like, I feel so bad. And I'm like, did you read the caption? I said it's been 5 years. Like, it didn't happen today. Read. Use your eyes.
It's very funny how it does feel like if life was a writer's room, they were like, okay, this season is kind of boring.
Yeah.
Let's just put a little, like, scare with a disease that is potentially life-threatening. Let's just, like, throw it in there just to see our main character struggle.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like, this will humanize her to an audience. You know, when she gets everything she wants, the payoff will be much bigger because she has struggled. Like, it does feel like God was like, let's just spice it up. Like,
it's boring. Let's spice it up. Can you explain the surgery day? Because I think for me, my surgery day was both the most scary and funniest day of my life.
Totally.
What was your surgery day like?
My surgery day was very much the same. First of all, surgery days are always, like, so early in the morning. And so it's like, I was like, I wonder if they could push it. My mom's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, get out of bed. So that was part one.
Can I just, like, sleep in a little bit more? You will literally be asleep for the rest of the day.
And for the next week. Like, can you just make it? I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to put on pants. And so we're dragging ass getting there anyway. And then you have to wait forever. Which is, like, it's funny because I think even family doesn't know what to do. So it's like my mom is not an especially religious person, but she's like, I guess we should pray. Like, what do we do now?
Was she trying to be helpful, but then not trying to act like she's nervous? So then she comes off as disingenuous. Like, how was it? Because that was for me. Like, everyone was like, oh, this isn't a big deal, but you see the fear in their eyes.
Totally. Yeah. Like, it was like the moment when she was hugging me for them to take me back that, like, I could, like, tell she was about to cry. And I'm like, why were you doing this all day? Like, we just cry about it, you know? Like, whatever. We going in, all right? They're going to stab me open. Like, we knew this was happening. But it's also
this is part of the plan.
Exactly.
This is predetermined.
Yes. And so it feels like, I think, like, that's the thing. It's like all day it feels like people are trying to be supportive, but also like not be cheesy, but also like be cool about it, but like they're not cool about it. And it's like, it's just, there's nothing else to talk about. So that was very difficult. Then I remember the surgeon came in, which is, fine. And I'm sitting in the room, like they've put in like a plain IV, whatever. And they're just like, so you have an option to get like, there's 2 different kinds of scars basically you can get. You can either get like one that's...
I'm sorry. They were giving you like options of scars, like as if it was a menu.
Yeah, totally. They're like, here's like the sexy tattoo that you come out of here with. It like looks like a hack job either way. But the first one is like straight down. It's like from the middle of your chest all the way down. And I'm like, that just seems like a lot of layer. Like, what else do we have? And they're like, there's one that's like an L, like it's like down and over. And my mom is like, which one is better for surgery? And they're like, it's the same. Like, it doesn't change that. It's just
still
like
opening her.
Yeah,
the fuck up.
like she's for sure gonna be bleeding on a table. So like, that's not the point of this. Just like aesthetically, what are you thinking? And so it's weird to make that decision just like in 5 minutes. It's like if you're at a like tattoo parlor and like you have 2 options, and like neither of them are good. They're like, you get a Tasmanian devil, or you can get like live, laugh,
or
love.
Stamp that says your name. Yeah. Like those are the 2 options. They're terrible.
Yes.
No one's gonna like it.
Exactly. I'm like, neither of these are satisfactory. So I'm gonna go with the L. Like, maybe just like make it a little corner. So that was its own bit of levity. And then, they take you to this sort of waiting room, and everyone who's in there is going to do some surgery that day. And everyone who was in there was very elderly. And so they all kept looking at me like they felt sorry for me. And then I felt awkward. Like, I wanted to be like, no, guys, like, no, it's like cool. Like, that's not like sad that I'm here. Like, it's not tragic. Like, it's tragic for you guys. Cause
it's like, don't look at me with tragic eyes. Literally look at yourself.
Exactly.
Okay?
I'm like, I'm pretty sure we're all wearing this like bleach smelling fucking outfit. Don't act like it's a first timer. Yeah. Hopefully last time, guys. Like, chill. So that was its own thing. And then I think the last thing that I really remember was like they do this epidural, like they like put it in my like weird neck hookup stuff. I don't know. And I remember they were like, this cocktail's so good. Like, it's going to be like going out. I'm like, I don't really drink that heavy. So like, you're making it sound bad. They're like, no, you're going to love it. You're going to be knocked out in like 30 seconds. And I wasn't knocked out until I was in the room. The whole time I was like, so am I going to go to sleep? And I remember the last thing I heard before I fell asleep was the surgeon go, why is she awake? Because the whole time I'm like, I don't know, man. I think I'm different. I think it doesn't work for me. I'm just like monologuing about how I'm still kicking it, still feeling feelings. And then I woke up screaming, which was also its own like level of insanity.
Because like the last thing you heard is, why is she still awake? So, if you didn't wake up screaming, I'd be concerned.
Yeah, you're like, wow, she just like she's really that guy. But no, I fully woke up screaming. My mom was on one side of the bed. My friend Tim was on the other. And I was just like, ah! I just laid back down. And then it was like, I feel like it must have been 2 hours later. We kind of repeated it. But then I was just sort of like, whoa. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously, the rest is history. It's pain in a hospital, yelling in a hospital, pushing buttons to keep getting that pain drip. It's like Dance Dance Revolution for your body's pain goo centers.
Button. Absolutely.
Exactly. You don't want to miss. You don't want to accidentally doze off 8 minutes in when you're supposed to push the button again.
And it's also like, the nurses, you want to be on their good side because it's like, I want to be the favorite patient.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know
God.
if you have, like, I'm a people pleaser. I want to be liked. So it's like, I want to be the best patient.
Yes.
When I'm in,
Yeah,
so,
like I feel like they're judging me. Like, I'm like, I don't want to be the person that you guys talk about in the break room.
Oh my God. Absolutely. And it's like, if anything goes wrong, I want you to be like maybe a little bit concerned emotionally about me. Like, I know this is your job and you see people all the time, but like, I want you to like, I dream, this is like the dream. I'm like, oh my God, I hope those nurses go back home and say, hi, honey, how was your day? And then they're like, oh my God, I had this patient and she was just so quirky and nice. And I actually cared about her and she did good. Like in my head, that's what I want. I don't know why I have this like, because I feel like comedy is a deeply humanizing aspect. Like the moment that I went into the surgery, I couldn't stop making jokes. And I can tell that like everyone else that was just setting up, and also like you go into this like really sterile environment with like a metallic bed.
It looks wild.
That looks like Frankenstein shit. Like everything's white, your ass is hanging out.
Yes.
Like it's the most dehumanizing thing. They like, there's nothing about you that like you can't express your personality with your robe.
Right. Like
you know
they
what
walk
I mean?
in
It's
and
just,
they ask you your name every time because they don't know who you are at all. They're like,
they don't know who, they want to make sure that they're doing the right thing on the right person.
Yeah, like you're just like, okay, so you're the one who ordered the McRib. I'm like, yes, I'm the McRib.
I'm the McRib. Yes, correct. And it's so interesting because in the room, I could tell that the anesthesiologist like could tell that I needed humor, and then everyone started telling jokes, and they were terrible jokes.
Yeah,
like in a normal world, I wouldn't laugh. I'd be like, "This is an awful joke. Please shut up." But in the moment of high intensity, of like a lot of nerves, a lot of anxiety, it was like a drug.
Yeah,
it was like it sedated me into just. It's so weird, but it's almost like even if I do die here, like I didn't lose myself in it.
Right.
I'd still made fun of it.
Right.
And like I think about that like the moments where it seems like, because this is the problem. Like tearjerker movies are never funny. There's never like a moment of levity in tearjerker movies. You're just like crying the whole time through. And life isn't a tearjerker movie because when you're going through tearjerker chapters, you have funny moments.
Always.
You have moments that you just laugh at, and I feel like a lot of people are afraid to laugh at those moments because it feels like you're making light of it, but isn't that part of?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like so human nature, right? Is like it's almost a survival mechanism of like if I have to go through hardship, I have to be able to make myself happy. And if laughing is the thing, then like I'm going to do everything in my power to make other people laugh, to make myself laugh, to feel like, you know, at least as I was dying in a hospital, like it wasn't, you know, such a bummer. It's like I don't want to sign up for the bummer aspect. Like this is it. This is the end. Like I remember I was really like, I was just coming up with tweets I would send as like my last tweet. And then I like got on this like kick of looking at like famous people's last tweets when they like died, which is not great. But the best one is Corey Monteith's. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but he was
No, tell me about so this is the last tweet he sent out before he passed away?
Yeah, so he died of an overdose, very tragically young. He was on Glee, and his last tweet was, "Oh, like a shark tornado."
That's brilliant.
And I'm like, you know, I need something like that. And I'm pretty sure mine was like just like saccharine nonsense because my mom was like, don't tweet shark tornado. But I'm like, Mom, who cares? Like, whatever.
Please let me have. You want BuzzFeed articles about what your last tweet might mean.
Exactly. I want that to be like some list. I'm number like 37 on best last tweets for dead people. Not enough dead people had Twitter accounts, so it's really a thin list.
It's a very thin list. And now it's time for our very first ad. Can you believe it, Jenny?
I've waited for this day, Joanna. De Viaje con los Derbez 2 is a comedy docuseries that follows one of the most beloved families in Latin entertainment.
The cast includes Eugenio Derbez's real-life star-studded family.
Together, the Derbezes learn how to survive in the wild on a crazy family trip.
Oh, God.
The second season of De Viaje con los Derbez is available on Pantaya in the US and Puerto Rico.
On Pantaya, you can enjoy hundreds of movies and shows in Spanish from the comfort of your home or anywhere else by streaming them on your cell phone. Like El Juego de las Llaves with Maite Perroni, that's gearing up for a second season.
So here is the exclusive limited offer.
Exclusive limited offer.
Enjoy Pantaya for just $1 a month for 3 months by visiting pantaya.com/pitaya and subscribing now. Remember, that's Pantaya with a Y.
So, since like 5 years have passed,
Yes.
you went through a time where like you thought maybe like death is a thing that could happen, because we go through life like pretending death isn't happening. It's kind of like when you're at a restaurant and a crazy person starts yelling in the restaurant and everyone is just pretending nothing is happening.
Yeah, totally.
Like that's what death is for me. It's like everyone's going to go through it. It's all over the place, but we all pretend it's not happening. Mm-hmm. But I think that once you're confronted with something like this, you can't ignore it.
Yeah. I would say that's 1,000% true.
Did it change the way that you like see death?
Yeah. Which is funny because I just played this game the other day, and it's like just questions, but they're kind of like deep getting to know each other questions. And one of them was like, when did you realize you weren't invincible? If you have realized that you're not invincible. And my answer was actually when I was 17 and totaled my car. Because I was like, man, that would happen really fast. Like I wasn't that injured. I got a concussion and like my lip got busted, but like it was still like, damn, like I just got
and
wrecked.
You totaled your car?
Yeah. It was,
and that's all that happened to you?
Yeah. To be fair, my car was worth nothing. Like it was
oh, okay.
Any scratch would have been a total. The other car I hit was totally fine. My car was like crunched, and I was like, okay, guess I walked to the mall job I have. So I was like, I thought that was it. And so I do think that's when I realized I wasn't invincible. But as far as surgery went, it did change the way I thought about death, because I think that like it gave me a sense of like the inevitability of it. Like a car accident was kind of random, right? It was like, it just sort of happened and it was very quick. And I was also like young and basically unscathed, you know, like I worked at the mall the next week. Like it was fine. But this one I was just like, oh, like this is actually a part of life. Like part of life is having your health just do something insane suddenly. And then you have to either overcome it or you die. And you don't really have a say in that necessarily, you know, like you can do everything you can and you can hope. But like ultimately, I realized there was nothing I could have done. With like the car accident, I probably didn't have to look for my cell phone at that moment because someone was calling me and Salt and Pepper was playing. And I was like, I need to find the phone. And I looked down for half a second and I wrecked into somebody. But like in this instance of like, there was no thing that I can point to where I could have done something else. And it also just like put into perspective the fact that like there's this lyric in a Death Cab song, so please indulge me, where they say
Death Cab for QB?
Yeah, Death Cab for QB. Yeah, cubism. Death
Cab for QB.
Death Cab for
Death Cab for Quibi.
Death Cab for Quibi. 7 minutes of death. Death Cab for Quibi has to be tweeted. They had this lyric that was like I mean, the song I think is called Sarah's Song, and it's about like, you know, love is watching someone die. But the real lyric is like every plan is a prayer to Father Time. And it really struck me in that moment when I realized I was sick, I was having a major surgery, and I was going to be sick until I had that surgery, and then I'd be recovering for a long time. Was that like, oh, all of these plans I have, these grand plans for my life, where I'm like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have kids, I'm going to get married, I'm going to go to this, you know, I'm going to be in Lake Como drinking wine, like whatever mundane or extravagant thing that I truly had planned for this very long life, because that's what I planned for. I wasn't like, let's get it done in 6 months. You know, all of that is in a way like a prayer. It is like a hope. It is faith in the idea that you'd have more. And so I do think that there is a level of like I've changed because of that. Like I don't stay at jobs very long, which is like, this job I have now is the longest job I've ever had. And it's coming up on like a year and a half, 2 years almost. I don't, you know, if I'm at a party and it sucks and I'm like, you know, it would be so much better is like playing a video game, I just leave. And it's not because I, you know, am like, I have to do the best thing. It's just like, oh, time is so precious. And I think that like I had taken it for granted in a lot of ways, in the same way that I think we all felt about like the pandemic initially, where it's like, damn, why did I say no to lunch so many times when like now all I want to do is go to a lunch where someone like pitches me on something that is very stupid and the food's only okay and the train is late and I'm sweating from my face. Like, why did I not go to all of those things? And it's like, you know, like I think I've come to terms with the fact too that like you can choose to do what you can with the time that you were lucky enough to have. And so I just feel really like that was the thing.
It's interesting also how quickly we forget.
Oh, it's true.
Like, you know, I remember after all of this, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to prioritize my family and my friends more than my work. And then now I'm just like, all I'm doing is working. Like I'm literally, there's a family reunion right now. All my family and friends are like somewhere, like having a fun hike. And I'm just like, I can't, I have to write my script and I got to do my, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because I have dreams in the future, right? Like I expect my future to be better than my present.
Yeah. Yeah.
But after this experience, it's like, actually, you're not sure. I mean, I think and there's this book called Stumbling Upon Happiness that I love, but you know, it basically says that neurologically speaking, human beings, we treat our future selves almost like our child. Yeah. Like we do everything to help our future selves. We care about our future selves more than our current selves usually. Totally. Like, oh, I got to eat well because my future self, oh, you know what? I'm going to pack today so my future self can just go straight to the airport. You're always thinking about your future self. Yeah. And when these kind of things happens, it's like, oh, I don't know what my future self is going to even be like or look like or act like. Yeah. And I think after going through this, it's like, oh my God, thank God I'm I'm more myself. I'm not someone different.
Totally.
And I always was afraid that something traumatic was going to change me, but it just makes you more yourself.
That's so
like
right. Ooh, that is a word. Like that is exactly
right? It's like,
it.
I never realized what I meant with I'm a comedian more than after realizing that at my core, comedy is what I use to survive.
Yeah.
And live this world. It isn't what it's my career.
Yeah, like you happen to make money doing it. But the truth is, I also think that like you get so much value out of making other people laugh. And like, I understand why you would choose work sometimes. You know what I mean? Because your work allows you to do that more. That's how you help the world. That's how you relate to people. I think that everything you're saying, I definitely resonated with. I also think that like anyone who has like a chronic illness or something where they're like stuck at home. I mean, like truly, I will say, you know, there's probably a benefit in me being sick 5 years ago. Like I kind of felt like really cheated in the pandemic where I'm like, I already had to stay home. That sucked. Like, why
How dare you? Yeah. I already did this.
Exactly. You all can stay home and catch up. Like, it's not fair. But then I was also like, there was so much that I learned in that time that like it stopped feeling scary really quickly to me, where I was like, oh, I know how to be alone and I know how to make the most of it. And I know how to weather, you know, terrible storms. And I just feel like there's so much value in surviving something like this, even though it's like if I had a choice, I obviously would never have had that happen, you know, but I do think that like to your point about being more yourself, I think that like one great lesson of my life is that like I always thought someone had to choose me, where it's like, I need to get chosen for this school. I need to get chosen for this scholarship. I have to get chosen by some studio. I have to get chosen, you know, by a boy. I have to get chosen by all of these things. Like, and so everything I'm doing is in an effort to be chosen by something. Mm-hmm. And then when that happens, you realize like, oh, well, this tumor chose me. So it looks like I actually need to start choosing stuff. Like, turns out I'm in control of so many more parts of my life, and I can wait for things to happen or be afraid to try things because I think it's not the right thing, or like, oh, if I choose this and then I miss out on that, I've messed up. And I think that I just realized like, you know, there isn't a right way to do life. There isn't some like actual path that like, if I follow it, I won't get sick again, or I won't, you know, end up dating the wrong person, or I won't take the wrong job when I should have taken a different one, or whatever. Like, you know, life is just all the choices. And so I think it's actually made me relax so much more, because I realized like, you know, it's not even a fear. It's just like a reality of like, tomorrow we could be back in the hospital. So it's like, what am I going to do that makes me feel good? That is what I want to do, is in the direction I'm looking for. And like, what am I choosing every day? And it's like, if it's miserable, like reassess that shit and do something else.
It's, you know, I had a really big surgery at 21 because I had a bike accident and I broke both my elbows simultaneously.
Damn.
And I had like an 8-hour.
What the hell? Sorry, wait a minute.
Oh, girl, yeah. Like I survived Venezuela. I survived Caracas, the murder and kidnapping capital of the world. I survived it. Then I went to Cape Town, rented a bicycle, crossed an empty parking lot, and fucked myself up. Like I broke every bone in my arm. It was like I had an 8-hour surgery on it, whatever.
And
it was really terrible, and it was really, really bad because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to move my arm again, but it felt different than this last time. I was 21 then, and it was like the question you said. It's like the first time I realized I wasn't invincible, but I still felt like I was immortal.
I have a question for you about all of this.
Yeah.
When you were recovering, I mean, are you recovered? How do you feel? Like, where are you now?
So I have to do another surgery, probably in the fall. I almost feel like it feels so weird. I feel like I shouldn't have made a big deal out of it. Oh my god, I'm fine. Like, yes, oh my god, but at the same time, I felt my brain sort of
just from over here. I want to say it's that big C word. It's nothing to sneeze at. You know, you don't have to downplay it.
It's crazy because so I go to the dermatologist, I get this thing tested, and when I go back to her to like get the results, she says, okay, so yes, it is a cancer. And then I started crying, and she goes, why are you crying? And I'm like, why do you think I'm crying?
Like, what did you just say?
Idiot?
What did you just say? Like, let's play it back. Like, can we bring it back up? She said cancer, right?
And she was like, no, but this isn't like, you're not gonna die. Like, it's fine. You just have to get it treated. so it was this weird thing where it was cancer, and it could have been really, really bad if I had waited a little longer. But at the same time, it was bad.
Yeah.
So, it was this constant fight of like, with my first doctor, for example, of her minimizing how bad it was. And then me coming to terms with how bad it really was. Yeah. Like I went through like this 24-hour period where I just didn't understand where I stood with how I was. So wait, I'm not going to die. All right. Okay. So not going to die. We got the cancer out, but now I don't have a cheek.
Yeah.
Will I ever look the same? Yeah. I shouldn't be worrying about how I look because I survived, because they took the tumor out. Oh my God, I should be so grateful. But I literally don't have a cheek.
Yeah.
Oh my, and it's just this feeling of like, I felt really bad about
caring
being
about
so upset about not having a cheek.
But I also, I still like, I think you'll feel different about it as time goes on, I think that all of that uncertainty is exactly right, because I gained a ton of weight when I was sick, and I had like all of this shame about it. Like I booked a role finally, like something a few months after the surgery. And I remember I was going for the fitting in LA, and I was just so upset. Like nothing fit. I like gave them my old sizing, and it was just like the end of the world to me. Like I was like, this is so horrible. And I was watching the Olympics, which is not a great thing to watch because you cry anyway. And I was just like touching the mirror in the hotel room, just like, it's okay. Like your Olympics is surviving surgery. And it's funny because I think like at first I was like, I don't care about the scar. And I really didn't. And then it changed. Like at one point it got like wider, and then it like started losing pigment. And it was just like, it kept changing. And I was like, okay, I actually would like some consistency in my life. And so, even now, I think because I have a pool now, and only temporarily, let's be clear, I'm going to leave this place. But because I have a pool now, I'm like so much more aware of it, because I'm like, well, I'm not wearing crop tops in the winter. Like, who cares? But now I'm like, oh no, like it is kind of a thing where I'm not even self-conscious about it, but people will ask about it. And I don't want to go to a party and then have to explain, like, I got cut open 5 years ago because of this thing. And it's not a shame thing. It's just like, it's sort of just like a thing where I think people want to be real. So they're not going to ignore it. But it's also like, I would rather just not, like, it's a thing that you wear on yourself that, people do see. And I don't know what's right. I don't know if people should just ignore it or if they should say something. But I also know that like, I'm not always up for telling people, especially people I don't know very well. And so it's like, it's just tough.
Meanwhile, I'm like, I have this weird freaking thing on my face. Like if you look in my face, I don't look normal yet. And like,
I can't, like, I can't see it like it looks really good to me, baby. It looks good.
But
I'm not,
I don't look normal, especially when I'm like moving, it gets purple, whatever. So it's on my face. I know it doesn't look normal. And all I want to do is tell people about it, because I can see people staring. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be the one to be like, oh, let me explain to you. I had a huge skin cancer tumor removed. Like, I don't want to be the one to bring it up. So I'm like, kind of like, sometimes I just like put my face a certain way and just be like, ooh, it is tingling today. Just like hoping someone asks me so I can just give them my backstory as to why I have this weird... You have this weird oval on the side of my face. Like I'm the type of person that is desperate to share things with people so I don't feel alone.
Yeah.
And
that's beautiful.
That's all I want is like, I see people staring at it and I want to explain it to them, but then I feel weird making them uncomfortable. But I do feel like it's...
That is where we differ, because I want them to be uncomfortable. Like I have used my scar at the end of Soul Cycle classes where I'm just like trash. Like I'm in the front, I'm slow, I'm not keeping up. Everyone's like, why are you in the front? Like you're fucking like out of shape ass in the back.
I hate that. I hate that Soul Cycle hierarchy, by the way. It's like if you're in the front, it's like you have to be as good as the instructor.
Yes.
I'm like, how dare you? I paid $40 to do this dumb 40-minute class.
Exactly.
I can do whatever the fuck I want.
If I want to dance in the front and blow out the candles, I can do that. So just like, give me a break. But they all look at you like you're not an athlete. And so I would always like change really slowly in the changing room. So they'd have to look at the scar and then feel bad for judging me. Like I'm like, yeah, remember you guys thought I was just out of shape, but maybe. And I'm like, I actually am just out of shape. It's been years. Like it turns out this could have been.
I love that you have like a CW scene written in your head every time you go to Soul Cycle with your scar.
It's definitely not good for my mental health to go to Soul Cycle if I have to like talk myself up to these people. But I do it, and I make them feel weird and bad about it.
Well, it is like a badge, right, of a moment in your life that did alter and change you. Like that's what I see my scars as, like my arm scar and now my dumb face scar. And I'm going into surgery in the fall. They're going to remove the piece of skin that's there currently and just like pull it back. Whatever. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm going to have like a facelift on half of my face. It's going to look great. Going to be 27 on one side, 32 on another. And I realized that like it's going to disappear basically with years. The scar will be lighter. I'm not going to have this weird skin patch anymore. It's just sort of going to fade into the past.
Yeah.
And there's something about not having it on me anymore that is both relieving, but at the same time kind of sad to me. Because I feel like a different person.
Yeah.
But I will look the same.
Yeah.
After. And all I wanted this whole time was to look the same. I you don't know how many times I told my husband, I was like, I just like all those years of being like, oh my God, I wish my nose was smaller. Oh my God, I wish my chin. I just want a cheek, dude. Yeah. I straight up only want my face to look like a normal person face.
I love you so much. I just want a cheek, dude. Like I'm not even asking for like anything different. I just like want a cheek.
I just like want a cheek. I don't want it to be like a concave portion of my face right now. Like there's no fat there or skin. I just want to be filled out and have it be the color of my skin. And now it's like, oh, and the doctor is always like, oh, the scar's going to be, you're basically going to be able to hide it. And I'm like, I mean, okay, but I also don't mind if it's not hidden.
Yeah.
There's something about it being there that makes me feel like like what you said is like a really terrible tattoo. Like it's still a tattoo. I didn't choose it, but it's that tattoo. Like I don't have tattoos, and I think that my scars, like the one on my arm and now the one on my face, is like a little tattoo I chose to show how badass I am. Like I can't do tribal tattoos, but I will do.
Yes, amen. I mean, I feel you. I'm getting a revision surgery on my scar, and it's funny because like people are always like, they want to be body positive about like my body for some reason. They're like, no, it's amazing.
It's like, you don't get to be positive about my body, dude.
Exactly. Like, no, let me be good. Okay, let me cut it into you. Let me cut it into you. And then we can all have the discussion about how great it looks. Oh, you don't want that. You think it's weird if I cut you open. Great. So then like mind your damn business. But like the truth is I feel the same. I feel that same sort of tension of like, it is I have a massive scar and it's dark, like keloided. It looks like I went to the plastic surgeon to talk margarine.
I love my surgeons. It's like butter. It's like the margarine version of a surgeon.
I can't believe it's not surgery. I went to my surgeon and I was like, okay, so like this is it. And it was funny because he was like, did Stevie Wonder do the surgery?
Oh my God, are you serious?
And I laughed so hard. I was actually glad that he recognized I was there for that reason. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of a hack job. Like I'm alive, but like it looks crazy. And he was.
I love that the doctor was like, oh, did a blind person perform a surgery? That's how bad this looks?
I know. Like
straight up to your face? Was he negging you? What is this?
Right? It was very bizarre. And I don't even know why I liked it. I think it was because I didn't want him to pretend it was okay. Like, no, it's beautiful. I'm like, no, how good can you make it? Tell me how ugly it is now so that I have a gauge. And it's, it'll still be a scar, but it won't be discolored. It'll be very thin. And it is weird because it's like, oh, this thing that I've spent so much time not even thinking about, it's just like I'm aware of. Like anytime I'm changing clothes somewhere in front of somebody, whether it be sexy times or just because I happen to be in a room. Like, I'm just like, oh, this is a thing that I forgot about until this moment. And now it's like probably going to be a conversation. I mean, I think I still have it'll probably still be a conversation, but people won't think it's as bad. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. Like, I kind of like the overreaction so I can calm them down. If they're just like, oh, that doesn't seem bad. I'm like, it was pretty bad actually though. Like, you guys weren't there. Like,
you want your scar to be the billboard of your trauma.
Yes.
You don't want it, you know what I mean?
You guys don't know.
I want you to see the trauma.
They're like, no, you look fine. Like, you're actually great. I'm like, no. I mean, I know I don't want to be defined by it, but like, I'm kind of defined by it.
It's so funny because like, because you were talking about like your accident and I was talking about my bike accident, and I'm like, for those things I'm like, I can blame that shitty bike and be pissed at the person that rented the bike from me, or like, and then with like body things like what happened to me, it's like I can't be who am I gonna like curse out the sun? Like, fuck you, sun, for giving me cancer. Like, that's not exciting.
Exactly.
That doesn't feel, but there's something about, this is terrible, I think it's human nature, there's something about like placing blame and putting that anger and frustration and of that's basically sort of covering up your fear and anguish towards someone. And when it's your body, it's like, oh, you can't really be mad at anyone, you can't funnel that anger towards anything. And I remember I was like, I was like freaking out, and my mom made a mistake and accidentally showed me the picture of the hole in my face because it was covered up. But my mom accidentally opened the picture that the doctor sent of like my post Mohs surgery cheek, which was, oh my God, it looked like a zombie movie. It looked like someone bit my cheek off and all you could see is like the muscle. It was disgusting.
Oh, no.
And I saw it, and in that moment, it was like all the anger and frustration I had that I couldn't really
put anywhere,
funnel and gear towards anyone. I just yelled at my mom, like overreacted. And I was like, oh my God, I felt terrible about it afterwards. But I was like, no, my body wanted something to blame for something.
Yeah. Like that's I mean, it's also like grief. It's like a stage of grief. Like you are mourning in a way like what you used to think you looked like, or what you used to look like, or what your life used to be before this struggle. And it's like, anger is there. And you're right. There's nowhere easy to put it. Like, I mean, I remember I kept getting angry at my mom. And the truth is, like, she was just being clumsy. But, like, she just kept dropping, like, her purse on my, like, stomach in the car and stuff. I'm like, Mom, please. Like, do you even give a fuck? You're going to rip my stomach open? She kept putting on shows that were scary, so I would jump. And then I'm like, I think we have to go back to the hospital. Like, you know? Like, I just felt like she was purposely trying to see how bad, like, what is the line before I will literally die? And she's like, I'm really just, like, I'm 60. Like, I'm just not paying attention. And I'm like, no, you're trying to kill me. And she's like, oh, I think that this isn't about me. I'm like, you're right. I'm yelling at the tumor in this moment. Like, I'm angry that your mom was
the mom was the like surrogate tumor in those moments.
Yes.
Where you could just yell at it. Because it's so funny.
I yelled at some people on the street. I have to tell you this because it's so stupid. But when I was recovering from my surgery, so it was like the first week after, and you have to walk a lot. They're like, you have to walk. It's good for blood circulation, whatever. And I hated it. It was so hot in New York, and I'm walking really slow, which is like, I hate that in regular times. And now I have like real respect for people who have to walk slower. But like before, I was just like, move. I'm trying to get places. So I'm walking slow. I'm doing my walk, and people keep stopping around me in big groups. And I'm like, what is happening? And it only occurred to me like days into this happening where I'm like, leave me alone, like screaming at these people. They thought I was stopping and like going slow because there was a Pokemon, because Pokemon Go had just come out. And so every time I would stop at like a trash can, they were like, there's a Pokemon over there.
Oh my God.
And I was like, get away.
Oh my God. They thought there was like, oh my God, a Pikachu. It's like, no.
It's me. I'm the Pokemon.
My body.
Get away from me.
My body is fucked up right now.
So I yelled at them. They were my surrogate tumor as well. I'm like, yes, I must have
I did yell at one other person other than my mom. I yelled at one other surrogate tumor. I was crossing the street and this guy like almost ran me over. And it was like the wrath of Satan. I was like, o sea, como que my face was all fucked up. I was like, finally went for a walk and this motherfucker almost runs me over. And like, I'm sure he was distracted. It's fine. It happens to all of us. I unleashed a demon inside of me.
His car exploded. He just looked at him.
But then he started yelling at me like, you fucking bitch. You. And I was like, oh, no, he didn't. And it just escalated and escalated. And it ended with me yelling at him, I have cancer. And he paused for a second and he was like, well, I don't fucking care. And he just drove off. And I was like, I thought that would make me feel better. Turns out, made me feel worse. So that's when I stopped yelling. I was like, yelling is not going to help here. Yeah. It's not helping me at all. Yeah. But it's like it's what you said. It's grief. And when you go through grief, there's these stages that people say grief is.
Yeah.
What did you say?
It's not linear, you know? Like, it's like one day I'm like in the anger stage and I'm back at denial. I'm like, no, I'm good. And I can just go and like, I'm better now. I'm better. And it's like, no, like you actually have to rest. Like they're just, it's all of the stages of grief at differing parts of the day for months and months and months. And then at some point it's just like, oh wow, we survived it. And you almost forget that it happened. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like someone else talks about their surgery and then you remember that you had one. Like it's wild. Yeah. I mean, like when I saw that you were sick, I immediately was taken back to that place, and I felt so bad because it was truly the distance. I was like, oh, I had the benefit of people being right there and people being able to sit in the room with me when I was going to the hospital, you know, week after week, day after day. And so I think that you had a very specific go of it that I think you also should be allowed to like mourn and grieve, is the fact that like you didn't get to have the experience of people, you know, sending you a million things on Amazon and just like sitting on your bed and like telling you stories while you're like, oh, my body actually hurts. Please shut up. Stop talking to me now. I can't laugh.
It was such a bizarre way to bookend the pandemic. Mm-hmm. It was like, oh, we're all alone. And then I'm like, oh, no. I remember when I went to the doctor and I was like, we did the biopsy and I was like, what are the odds that something bad has happened? Like, it's 2020 was a nightmare. Yeah. There can't be anything wrong. And then when she was like, JK, it's really bad, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah, like there actually isn't somebody overhead being like, I mean, maybe, I don't know, but there's no one who's just like out there being like, this is the right thing. Like, this is enough suffering.
There's no head writer like, hey, why don't we pause? Because I think our main character does need to feel joy for like a couple episodes before we hit her with a cancer.
What if she could just acclimate to being stuck at home? They're like, no. What if she has to do that and overcome? She is the martyr. She is Job. She's Job.
But you know what it is, Akilah? You know what's crazy? It was like the pandemic, everyone was going through something. And it felt like this, yes, we were isolated, but there was this weird camaraderie where like humor was all quarantine humor and we all made the same jokes and whatever. And then it's like going through something that no one really fully understands other than myself was such a change in gears of like, oh my God, I'm not in the same boat as everyone. I'm alone kind of in this. Like, people can help me, but no one really understands what I'm going through.
Right.
And that was a weird switch of like, and as a comedian, it's like, oh, doing things in quarantine is so easy because I don't have to give context to people. People are living through this thing. If I make a joke, they already understand what I'm saying. But then with my whole like cancer thing and surgery, I'm like, oh my God, I have to give so much context for people for me to be able to make a joke about this because they don't understand. Yeah. There's so much to explain. And it reminded me that so many people suffer and go through really difficult moments alone, or at least with only themselves understanding how it feels.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I
but
feel
at the
so
same
grateful
time, it felt
that you want to talk to me about it. I mean, I feel grateful that like we are good enough friends, because the truth is, it's like I wouldn't have understood it had we not talked. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like everything is through the lens of what I know about my body and how I had to deal with something, and it's still not what you went through. You know. So it's like
I can empathize with what you went through. Like I feel like, but at the same time, I don't know what it's like to have my torso and stomach open. And I'm aware I don't understand it.
Yeah.
So I can empathize with some of the feelings of it, but at the same time, I know that what you went through isn't the same. And which is what really frustrates me about people trying to, which is like this whole thing, what we were talking about before, where people think you're a different person, right? One of the things I can't stand is people feeling like they have to get to my level to communicate with me. So it's like, oh, you had cancer. My dad had a mole removed. And I'm like, are you done?
Yeah.
And then like, cool. You don't need to be here with me in my sorrow. You can be wherever. Yeah. You can just talk to me.
Yeah.
And like, I think it's human. It's like human nature to be like, oh my God, let me get on your level. And then in getting on the level, it's actually really rude. Annoying.
Yeah. It's like, it's disrespectful.
You don't understand.
Yeah. And like all I wanted to hear, I think the whole time wasn't like, I'm so sorry you're sick. It wasn't, I had this other stomach surgery. I'm sure it was similar. You'll be fine. I didn't want to hear any of that shit. All I wanted was to like do what I was doing the day before. You know what I mean? Like, I just wanted to like talk about memes and just be like, look, be my friend in this. And like, if I want to cry about it, like, just give me the space, but like, it is this weird thing where I think people just feel like it's such an unrelatable thing, or that it won't happen to them, or because it hasn't happened to them, it's not going to, or that they have to be some version of supportive that they saw on like Grey's Anatomy or something. And I'm like, why don't you just not try that? Because you're not a good actor. And like, it's better if you just like say like, wow, talk. I will listen. I would have loved someone to just listen.
It's what we talked about before. It's like, the people I gravitated to the most were the people that just treated me like Joanna and would like make jokes and would be like, "Yo, that fucking sucks, dude. You don't have a cheek. Damn." Like it's just funny. Like people that treated me like they always treated me made me feel like I wasn't losing myself more than I already was.
Yeah.
And you're one of those people. You were really supportive and you also made jokes, and I just appreciated that. I was like, "Oh, I'm the same. Everything else is different, but I'm sort of at my core the same." I love that as we're talking about this like really emotional backstory, it started like straight up raining and thundering on my end, like as if we do have someone controlling the environment to match it with the conversation. There's like lightning and thunder, and like, you know, the gravitas of this moment is really replicated in the weather right now. Probably not in LA. You're probably like, it's probably gorgeous and sunny and like perfect.
It's unfortunately perfect, and my dog is just barking loudly, so he is the thunderstorm. I'm like, you're fine. He is your thunderstorm. There's literally no one at the house. He's literally just chilling. He likes to be loud. But yeah, I think that this is just such an important conversation for me personally, and I hope for the audience listening as well. But truly just like, look, life happens. You can plan for what you want and hope that it works out. But like at any point, this curveball can hit you. And like, I think that everything you've said about the way people react to illness, or even just the news of illness, or, you know, like even if you didn't feel sick, but you had this happening to you, right? Like the way they react to that is, I think, sometimes to distance themselves by creating a different version of you. And like, and to be like, well, now she's a survivor, or like now everything she posts is going to be about that, or like it's just like this caveat with your name. Like this is like, you know, if they introduced you at like a stand-up or something, and you're just like survived cancer, it's like, right, that's part of it, but like that's not my career. That's not how I identify. You know what I mean? Like I don't personally think about it.
I don't identify as cancer. Like.
Yeah, exactly. As like personally, I just like wouldn't say that I align with cancer's values, but like, you know, go off for them, like no judgment. But I think that like, yeah, there is this thing where, because we only interface with it when it's like raise money for it, or it's like someone, you know, who has had to lose all of their hair because of chemotherapy or whatever. Like it's almost like there's a script that they want you to follow so that they don't have to be uncomfortable and remember that like, oh, that's just a person. And so I think that like, if you are going through that, we see you. But also if you haven't gone through that, you know, if you have somebody in your life, why don't you just call them up and then like listen?
Just call them up and be yourself and listen. And be a little, just act like you'd always act. Like,
yeah, hang out.
Treat them like themselves. They're not someone
like
different.
Recommend good shit to watch. Like, what are you doing?
Oh my God, yes. That's always helpful. Even without disease. Please recommend me what to watch. I never know what to watch. I spend most of my time looking for shit to watch. It's actually a huge waste of my time, and I'm sure I'm going to regret it on my deathbed. It's going to be, you know, those like deathbed regrets? It's like, oh, you work. It's like, I regret working so much. I'm like, I regret spending all that time choosing what to watch. I should have just pressed play and just like done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember when like,
but anyway,
who were these people that like, I don't know if it was Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses, so no shade to either of them. Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses, go off to your thing. But one of them came to my door when I was a kid, and they gave me this pamphlet that was like, when you die, you watch a movie of your life. And I'm like, in real time? And like, yes, like, it's like a documentary. Like, that seems like a really long way to do life, but okay. And I remember like thinking, like, every time I do something that wastes my time, now I'm like, that's going to be part of it. I have to relive not knowing what to watch on Netflix when I die. That sucks. Like, that seems like not heaven.
I mean, I will say that if we have to watch a movie of our lives, at least we will be entertained.
Yeah, I want some highlights. That's all I'm saying. I need a highlight reel. I'll sit through the
highlights. You need the menu of your scar.
Mm-hmm. I want a score.
Yes. You need the getting your dog. You need your mom almost murdering you with her purse. All of these things need to be in the highlight reel.
Yes. Yes. And talking to you on this podcast is the highlight reel.
And exactly. I will relive this. I want to relive this podcast in real time, which we will, because I'll listen to it. Akilah, this was such a joy. Especially because, you know, we haven't been able to hang out during the pandemic. Yeah. Reconnecting on something that feels really real and human with someone that is very funny.
Yeah, I know.
Was my therapy for this week.
Oh, literally same. You are such a joy. I'm so glad you're doing the show. I'm so glad you want me to be on it. It's so funny and good. So funny and good.
Well, I hope when you move back to New York, the Akilah Joanna duo is reunited and we will gallivant
It's going to be beautiful.
through dive bars in Brooklyn and perhaps, overspend money on charcuterie plates and not regret it. That's what our life is going to be.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for promising that to me.
Thanks, Akilah. You're the best.